Salute, my Quickclassics friends. Welcome to this episode of the Quickclassics, and today is Wednesday, October the 13th, 2021. If you like the content, please click a like, subscribe, and share. Again, you guys are contributing to building the channel, so do again hit that like button and share. Today we'll be talking about the Minotaur, and I thought would use the rest of October to kind of talk about some of the monsters in Greek and Roman tradition. So we'll talk about the Minotaur today. Maybe talk about the giants, the hundred handers. I thought maybe it would be fun to look at King Lucan or King Lycaon from Arcadia, the werewolf in ancient Greek mythology, and maybe the Strix of the Lamia, some vampire creature or something. So, but today I thought we'd take a look at the Minotaur, and usually in any like movie adaptation or pop literature or whatever, you sort of get the kind of censored version of the story of the Minotaur, the Disney version, as I used to tell my students. But it's really kind of a gory, visceral tale that I think has some grounding in reality, not just as not as something that's full of metaphors to teach some kind of cogent lesson, but actually grounded in historical reality. Um, the story comes to us from Crete, which for my Institute of Biblical Anthropology students and followers will know that the Bible refers to Crete as Kaftor. Um, the myth centers around the creature itself, the Minotaur, but also the king of Crete at this time, a fellow by the name of Minos, and his queen, his wife, Pasiphae. So there's some interesting things that I want to tease out here, and I'll talk more about the historicity. But we actually do find the name of King Minos in what few written records we have that the Minoans left to us in the Linear A Greek script, which is still being worked on and translated. But we'll dig into that in a moment. So let's take a look at the actual myth of the Minotaur, the story. To set this up, again, we're talking about Minoan civilization. I have some quick classic episodes on Minoan civilization, if you want to check those out for some background. And of course, there's an abundance of material on the Minoans. The Sea Kings of Crete is a good reference to have as well for Minoan history. At any rate, um, the story behind this is that King Minos every year was required to give a sacrifice to the Greek god of the sea, Poseidon, and it was supposed to be his prize bull every year, the one without blemish, typically a white bull. Um, but he was so taken with the bull one season, he said, not going to do that. I think I'm just going to give the second best. And this is where the stories in Greek mythology typically take a turn, is when mortals try and pull the wool over God's eyes. Um, so he offers this secondary bull, and Poseidon is not really well pleased with this. Um, and so he plays a trick on King Minos. He says, "All right, you like this bull so much, I'm going to make your queen fall in love with the bull." So Pasiphae becomes enamored with this bull, and this is where it gets kind of, well, not kind of, it is just outright disgusting. Um, she she becomes so enamored with this bull that she dons a cow costume and attracts the bull in the pasture and allows it to mount her and basically mate with her. And the product of this act of bestiality is the Minotaur, this this enraged, chaotic creature, uncontrollable creature uh, that is part bull and part man. And the name itself is kind of interesting because uh, it comes from two words, Minos, the king's name, and Taros, which is a Greek word for bull. So literally the bull of Minos. Even though it's not his offspring, it's the offspring of this bull, this prize bull of his, and Pasiphae. And so now Minos has to figure out how to placate this thing, or it's just going to tear Crete to pieces. And so he enlists the help of Daedalus, who was Icarus's father. And Daedalus was kind of like the Albert Einstein, Leonardo da Vinci of Greek mythology. And he builds this subterranean prison under Minos's palace. That's a huge maze um, to house the Minotaur, and also to sort of funnel the um, sacrificial victims. The Greek word would be pharmakon, the sacrificial victims being offered to these gods. In this case, the demigod, the Minotaur. And they got these 7 young men and 7 virgins from Athens on the mainland, which was just a rather minor village at the time during the age of Minoan dominance, Minoan hegemony, if you will. And amongst these young men on one of the trips is to pay tribute, to basically sacrifice to the Minotaur, is a young man named Theseus. And Theseus, with the help of Ariadne, finds his way into the Minotaur, in through the labyrinth, taking a string so he can find his way back out, because people always got lost and could never come out of the labyrinth. That's what Daedalus designed it for. And so, long story short, he's able to um, kill the Minotaur and set these captives free, and basically end Cretan dominance over the mainland. And that does sort of illustrate the hegemony that Minoan civilization had at the time in the Aegean realm um, over the mainland, which would have been the Mycenaean, the up and coming Mycenaean civilization. So there are definitely some interesting elements to this story, some monstrous elements to the story. Um, where it begins to, and of course, this would have been horrifying to the later Greeks, who took much of their mythology from the island of Crete as a kind of cautionary tale. But it's much more than that. Um, we begin to see several points of grounding in reality in terms of, starting with the labyrinth itself. Um, if you look at the very palace of Knossos, if you look at an overhead plan of it, there are all kinds of, there are no clearly defined hallways. There are lots of rooms that turn into rooms, and crazy arrangements. The only open space, definable space in the whole palace was the central hall where court was held. The rest of it, looking down on it from top, really does look like a maze. But as to the identity of King Minos, we actually do have written records. There's a, I want to say that it's the Phaistos disc, but I'm not 100% sure. I know it's one of the scraps of epigraphy that have been taken for study that mention King Minos. In this case, it's written out in Linear A as Mina Rajan, and Rajan is one of those older words for king that you find in the old parts of the old world and the antique world, uh, related in some ways to other words for king, like Rapa or Rabba in the ancient Near East, and even Rex in the Roman world. So there are those elements. As to the Minotaur itself, Greek mythology is littered with all of these kinds of chimera, these half human, half animal creatures. And we know that in the biblical world, of course, you had references to things like the bulls of Bashan, which in context were probably not bulls, probably some sort of chimera. There's all kinds of bull imagery and the bull man imagery in the Mesopotamian imagery and iconography and mythology. Um, and of course, the very uh, this, particularly the material, the apocryphal material that deals with the antediluvian world. In Enoch, for instance, you have references of the Watchers basically manipulating the genetics of animals and all kinds of animals, birds and beasts that walk on 4 feet and um, reptiles to make these pre-flood monstrosities. Um, And as I say, in many mythologies around the world, these chimera are present, and so there are multiple groundings in reality. I think for something like the Minotaur, uh, and even today, I mean, our own research facilities clandestinely have been making human animal and specifically including bovine and human chimera, these hybrid creatures. So it's kind of an interesting time. We get a unique perspective on these elements of mythology, in particular, in this case, the Minotaur, um, and what seems to be going on behind closed doors, or has been for decades. Otherwise, I suspect they would that the Senate would have shot down the bill that proposed bill that would have outlawed the making of human-animal chimera. So that's something kind of scary to think about in the context of this larger story that I'm relating about the Minotaur. So, well, I hope that this was informative to you. And like I said, it's pretty disgusting and definitely a cautionary tale. But I think that there's some grounding in reality there too. If you're interested in mythology this week, I've got the Hunter's Kit sale for $140, and preternatural morphology and the mythology program would be probably very interesting, would correlate with this, and of course biblical demonology, which would graph some of this information, of course, and include monstrosities like the Minotaur. You have your choice of one of those, and you get a free copy of Interview with the Giant and the Book of Halloween. Um, and of course, individually, each one of the certifications are on sale for $105. And I would also recommend to you, if you want to learn more about the Minoans and their mythology, is to take the Mediterranean civilization program that I have. As I said, that's $105. It includes a section on Minoan civilization. Books are 10% off this week. You can enter in the coupon code treat10, and save 10%. And there are all kinds of books on the Greeks and the Romans, the shorter history of Greece, and in particular the myths of Greece and Rome will probably be a very helpful resource here too. So plenty to go after. All right. So until I see you again, everybody take care, and we'll see you shortly on another episode of Quick Classics.